Chaitanya Charan is a monk, mentor, and spiritual author. Seeing the current problems of stress, depression, addiction, and overall misdirection, he felt inspired to dedicate his life to the cause of sharing spiritual wisdom. He travels all over the world, from Australia to America, giving talks on spiritual subjects in big universities such as Princeton, Harvard, Stanford, and Cambridge, as well as companies such as Intel, Google, Amazon, and Microsoft. He's also a prolific writer and the author of the world's only Gita Daily feature, wherein he writes a daily 300-word inspirational reflection on a verse from the Bhagavad Gita. Till now, he has written over 4,000 Gita meditations that are posted on www.gitadaily.com. His articles have been published in many Indian national newspapers, including Indian Express, Economic Times, and Times of India. And if this wasn't enough, he is also the author of 25 books. So yes, thank you. And before we start, the house rules. So if everyone could just kindly keep your video cameras on and your audio, your microphones off. Cameras on so we can have a more personal session, and just mute your microphone so there's no background noises. So the microphones will remain muted until 10:45 South African time. So if you have questions or comments, please use the Zoom panel. You can also write it on Facebook or YouTube. And or you could stick up your hand for the Q&A session after 10:45, and then you can have a live question and answer with Prabhu as well. So yes, I see that our guest speaker has arrived. Hare Krishna Chaitanya Charan Prabhu. Thank you for joining us. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Happy to be here with you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Hare Krishna.
So, I'm grateful to be here with all of you today. Let's begin with some prayers. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjanishalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Chakalpatarubhascha Kripa Sindhubhya Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So I'm grateful to be here with all of you today. And the topic we're going to discuss today is on parameters for spiritual advancement. So I would like to begin by asking some of you, when you heard this topic, what came in your mind? Or what do you expect to learn? Or when you talk about parameters for spiritual advancement, what thoughts come in your mind basically?
I was thinking of an actual map. Okay, I'm stuck in a maze, and how to get out.
Sorry, I couldn't hear you. Can you repeat, please? Sorry, Prabhu.
Well, I was considering like being in a maze, this material world, like this big maze, and just getting some sort of a map of how to make it out.
Oh, okay. So it's like a maze. We are lost and we want a path. We are confused. We want a path by which we can move ahead. Thank you. So yes, checking where we are in our spiritual life. That's also one point. It's a good point. So broadly, we could say when we are on a spiritual journey, because it's often it's something a matter of internal, it's not that tangible. So it's difficult to know where we are going and how far we are going. So one question for those of you who are participating, how many of you are, say, how far in your spiritual journey? Is like everybody about 3-4 years they have in the journey, or is somebody 6 months, is somebody, so that I can speak accordingly? Or we have a wide group? Okay. Sorry, I think you are muted.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Well, usually it's quite a wide variety of devotees that join these sessions, from from beginning stages to very advanced. So usually quite a wide variety.
Sure, thank you. So I had planned accordingly itself. So let's see how we can move forward. Here I'll be sharing a PowerPoint which will be more like a whiteboard, which I will use to write and introduce things also. So parameters for spiritual advancement, if you want to understand, how do we go about doing this? So one way we could do it is by first asking a fundamental question, that is it even possible to have parameters for spiritual advancement? Some people may say that spirituality is actually a matter of the heart. It is abstract, it is not measurable, it can't be mathematically quantified. And that is very true, it can't be quantified. But doesn't mean that just because something can't be mathematically quantified doesn't mean it can't be assessed. There are many things which are not mathematically quantifiable, but still we assess them. Say for example, if you meet a person and some person is short tempered and some person is very steadfast, is calm. Now we can't put a mathematical measure on how angry someone is or how free from anger someone is, but still we can assess that. Now when we talk with someone, sometimes some people are gentle and polite, some people are caustic and cold. Again, we can't measure those things in terms of mathematics. So it may not be measurable mathematically, but that doesn't mean that no assessment is possible. So there's a difference between measurement and assessment. So yes, spirituality cannot be measured in terms of mathematics, but that doesn't mean it can't be assessed. There are other ways of assessing. And in fact, we can say that most of the valuable things in our life, the assessments for them are usually intangible. We can't really if say if somebody asks, did my does my mother love me? Most of us would say that yes, my mother does love me, but can you prove mathematically that your mother loves me? Well, I don't think we can do that. But just because that can't be done doesn't mean that there is no love. So the idea is that there are various parameters for discussing these things. So broadly, that's the point which I want to make, that yes, the essence of, okay, sorry, I'll come back to this. What happened over here? Sorry. Okay. So I'll come back to this point later, that yes, the essence of spirituality is beyond metrics, but that doesn't mean all of spirituality is beyond metrics. We can have different kinds of parameters for measuring things. So we can measure in various ways. And the key point to understand is that spirituality is about more than parameters. It is about more than metrics. It is not less. It is about something that is beyond. It is something which is more than metrics, but just because it's more than metrics doesn't mean that metrics doesn't work. So the misassessment would be that it is about something more than metrics, not less. So just like we can say that there are rules in every path. Even when you play sports, there are rules. This, if you're playing cricket, then this is the way you have to bowl. You cannot go in front of the line when you bowl. When you're batting, you cannot have a bat bigger than this thickness. So there are rules. Now sports is about more than rules. You follow the rules, but beyond that, we have excellence, we have performance. So sports is about more than rules, not less. When you say somebody has a sportsmanly behavior, so that means what? Okay, that person may go beyond the letter of the rules and acts in the spirit of the game. So when we look for metrics, when we look for parameters, we see them as indicators. They're valuable indicators. They are not exclusive determiners. That it is not solely based on this that we can determine. So we can't reduce spirituality to any one parameter alone. But that doesn't mean that spirituality cannot be assessed at all. So the misassessment would be to make spirituality so transcendental that it is not perceivable or accessible at all. So all parameters have perimeters. Perimeters means they function in a particular scope. They function for particular purposes. So I'll talk today about three kinds of parameters, and then we'll discuss about them one by one. So when we start practicing spirituality, it is usually we connect with some path, we read some book, we become a part of some movement, and then that movement is often a part of a tradition. So within that tradition, there are certain parameters. Okay, you have come to this level, then you move to this level, then you move to this level. So there are parameters within the tradition, and they have their own importance. Then along with that, there are personal parameters. Personal parameters means, why did I come on this spiritual path? So I came because I was feeling completely lost in my life. I didn't know what I was supposed to do in my life. So then what was my personal need? Was that being fulfilled? So we can look at personal parameters. And then there are social parameters. Now, social parameters means that there are in every society people who do certain things. They may be considered to be spiritually evolved. There are social conceptions of what a spiritualist may look like. So it could be that a person who is very calm and composed, a person who never gets angry, that person may be considered very spiritually evolved. Or a person who performs a lot of austerities, maybe fasts a lot, that person may be considered to be spiritually advanced, whatever it is. We'll come to that, but there are social parameters. Now, when you talk about these parameters, they are not exclusive. They are overlapping. I presented them as three categories. There could be traditional parameters, personal parameters, and social parameters. And they are like a Venn diagram with a large amount of overlap. So we need to understand that in our journey, what parameters are we using? Am I using any parameters at all? If I'm using the parameters, what parameters am I using? And how relevant are they for me right now? How relevant are they for me right now? So let's begin with these parameters. Let's talk about first maybe I'll start with the personal parameters first, then I'll come to other parameters. So personal parameters could be broadly two things. Virtues we wish to develop. Maybe I want to become more forgiving. Not many people themselves want to become humble, but some people, I want to become forgiving, say, or I want to find meaning and purpose in life. What am I here for? What am I meant to do in my life? So maybe I want to become more, you could say, resilient. I tend to lose heart quickly. Hmm? I want to develop greater amount of capacity to bounce back from failure, bounce back from relationship reversals, whatever it is. So we may, um, maybe there be certain things which we wish to virtues we wish to develop. Hmm? Or sometimes it may be weaknesses we wish to overcome. So nowadays there is addiction, and there can be addiction of to gross things, and there can be addiction to subtle things. So sensual cravings can refer to addiction to worldly things. Somebody may eat a lot, somebody may want to do drugs, somebody takes alcohol, and there can be subtler things where people attack to well, it's not exactly subtler, but it's more behavioral. Nowadays people may get addicted to their phones, they just can't give it up. I have a seminar series on how to break up with your phone. So we may have been a toxic relationship with our phones. So how to break up with our phone? So now beyond that, there can be even subtler. There is some people that it is called as approval addiction. That means I feel as if I am worthless unless people approve what I'm doing, and they have like a very deep need for others' approval. Now we are social creatures, and to some extent, yes, we don't want everybody to be disapproving us. But at the same time, different people have different psychologies, different people have different mindsets. So there are some people who may never approve us no matter what we do. Hmm? So for some people, approval from their mouths is, say, rarer than rainfall in the Sahara Desert. It may come once in a lifetime or something like that. And if we are hooked, dependent on their approval, then we won't be able to function. So that is also a weakness. So we may ourselves have particular reasons why we go on a spiritual path. And it could also be that we may feel lonely and we want some amount of bonding. Many people come to a spiritual path because they want a larger sense of community, they want a sense of belonging. So whatever it is. And the more we feel connected, then the more we feel we are growing. So these are personal parameters. So we all have our parameters. Now, how important, how valid they are, I'll come to that. These personal parameters will be very different for different people. And sometimes these parameters can help us grow, but sometimes they may hinder our growth also. Why that might happen, I'll come to that. But everyone, we all are trying to become better human beings. We are all trying to, even people who are wrongdoers, even people who are criminals, it's not that they think I'm a bad person and I want to become worse. It's rare. It may happen in the case of some sociopaths and psychopaths, but most people, they feel that I have some areas where I want to improve, and when people come to spirituality, they want to improve. So that's personal parameters. Now there are social parameters. Now, for example, every social circle, whether it is devotional or non-devotional, has certain things which it respects. So for example, uh, if in a particular tradition the holy people wear a particular dress, then if somebody is wearing that dress, then by default some amount of respect is offered to them. Even say, even ordinary people, when they decide they're going to a holy place, they're going to a church or a temple, then they may say, is my dress appropriate for going to such a place? Maybe I should dress in a different way. So there are externals. Now we say these are externals, but those are some parameters. Okay, if you are wearing this dress, that means you are dedicated to spiritual path. You may be spiritually advanced. Some one parameter which Krishna also talks about in the Bhagavad Gita is how does one speak? Bhasha. Does one speak wisely? Does one speak politely? Does one speak gently? He could say it's not just gently and wisely. One speaks wisdom, or just one speaks foul words, one speaks trivia, one speaks gossip. So we see that also. So a person who speaks wisely might be respected in some societies. Now, in some social circles, if somebody fasts and performs austerities and has a high level of discipline, that person may be respected. So now within the Krishna consciousness movement, we have a morning program. So if we have a sadhana which we do we have some spiritual disciplines that we follow in the mornings. So if somebody attends the morning program daily, we say, oh, this is a very serious devotee. Now maybe not. Now how valid these parameters are, this is also open to question. But the point is, we are just looking at it from different perspectives, that there are different parameters. And now, beyond these personal and social parameters, there are parameters which are given in the tradition. So what are those parameters? This is talked about as a journey from Shraddha to Prema. So Shraddha is faith and Prem is divine love. I'll explain these 9 stages of spiritual advancement. Here you can see this in the form of a diagram. Is this visible to you? Maybe I'll make this full screen to be able to see it. The Sanskrit words and I'll explain them separately. But these are considered the 9 stages in spiritual growth. So we start with Shraddha. Shraddha is faith. Then we come in so okay, maybe there is some higher reality I want to inquire about. So at this stage, Shraddha, although the word is used as faith, but actually it is more of favorable curiosity. Maybe there is something out there, I want to explore it. So let's see, I'll explain this and we'll come back to the visuals once again. What's going on? See. Okay, so Shraddha is, it is more of, it's called faith, but it is more of favorable curiosity. Maybe there is something out there. Maybe these spiritual kind of people, they know something. I want to inquire what it is all about. Then from there, the word uses sadhu sangha. Sadhu sangha is association of spiritualists. So at this stage, what happens? One becomes a little more inquisitive and goes and mixes with people. So in general, one of the best parameters to know who we are likely to become is to see who we are associating with. If we are parents and we are concerned about our children, we will naturally see who are my children hanging out with. So one sign that a person is becoming spiritually inclined is that a person is associating with spiritualists. So there one learns more. Now after that, there is bhajana kriya. So it's not just hanging out with spiritualists, but you could say adopting spiritual practices. So one starts doing something. So one comes, say, in a spiritual group and they do some meditation, they do some mantra chanting. Okay, let me also start that. So that's how. Now this is, actually this moves from external towards internal. The first 3 we could say are external, in the sense that we don't know whether somebody has faith or not, but we can see the favorable curiosity. They're asking questions. They want to know. And they're asking questions in a mood in which they want to learn. So from there, one moves towards bhajana kriya, and then bhajana kriya leads to what is called as anartha nivrutti. Now these words, so the words might seem unfamiliar, but the concepts are relatively simple to understand. What is this? Anartha nivrutti means purification, or we could say freedom from unhealthy cravings and habits. So first is our behavior changes, our habits change. Maybe we could put it first habits, because the external changes happen and gradually the internal changes also happen. So habits and cravings. So somebody starts practicing spirituality and maybe they had some issue with drugs, or they had issue with alcohol, maybe they had anger issues, and they start chanting the Mahamantra, they start doing some spiritual practices, and they find, oh, these things start decreasing. So when this starts decreasing, then the next thing that comes is nishtha. Nishtha is, we could say here it is realized faith. So here it is favorable curiosity, but realized faith means this thing works. I have seen it work. So I saw, maybe a few years ago I was so short-tempered. A few years ago I was hopeless. I was just completely dependent on that substance. I was so emotionally unstable. Now I'm different. So when that happens, this faith becomes much stronger. So maybe I should explore those things. So the initial Shraddha is, maybe there's something over there. Let me find out. So now if you'll see over here, these parameters, these 5 parameters, in one sense, this is like, you could call this as a process of spiritual therapy. Process of spiritual therapy means that if I am sick, then I don't know, okay, maybe this doctor will work. I've heard good things about this doctor. I've heard the good things about this treatment. So let me go and try it out. I go and meet the doctor, I talk with that, and the doctor says, okay, take this prescription. So you could say Shraddha is, in that sense, it's maybe this doctor might work. So it's just openness. It's not that it's already we have conviction, but we are openness. So we begin from there. Then like that we move forward. Let me go and meet with the doctor. Let me follow the prescriptions. So following the prescriptions is like, so then sadhu sangha is, we in one sense, when you talk about sadhu is, we, sorry, my computer is hanging, meet the doctors who in this case are all who are healed patients. They were also like us in some ways, but they're healed now. Then after that there is bhajana kriya. That means we are trying out the prescriptions. So generally when we go to a doctor, we try out the prescriptions. There are two things. There are prescriptions, take these medicines, and there are also prescriptions. Okay, maybe avoid this food, don't indulge in this. We try that out. And then there's anartha nivritti. That means we could say the disease subsides. And when that happens, that's when we gain faith. Oh, this treatment works. This treatment works. So now we could say this is like, as I said, a process of spiritual therapy. And in this process of spiritual therapy, what happens is nishtha. Nishtha is, this works. Now at this stage, we are not fully healed, rather the disease is being curbed. The disease has been substantially cured. But if in medicine, if somebody has a very prolonged disease, then the disease may be removed from their body, but their normal health is not yet recovered. That's why people have a period called recuperation, where, okay, your disease has gone, but you have not yet recovered energy. So this is more of the negative has subsided. The negative has subsided. But beyond that, there are the positive sides. And those are also important. So what is that positive side? There are 4 stages over here. It is called ruchi. Then it's asakti. I'll explain this. So ruchi is taste in spiritual activities. So one starts loving meditation. I look forward to it. One starts developing a taste for hearing spiritual talks. One starts developing a taste for reading wisdom text. One starts starts looking forward to getting joy in the spiritual activities. So this is ruchi. Then asakti is attachment to spiritual reality, with spiritual realities. So there's ultimate spiritual reality. The Bhakti tradition describes that the ultimate spiritual reality is the all attractive divine Krishna. So one starts becoming attached to Krishna. So now there is a slight difference between ruchi and asakti. Ruchi is more in terms of activities. This is what we are doing. We start liking what we are doing. Whereas asakti is in for what we are doing. Means what is the target of why I'm doing this? What is the reality I'm connecting with? So some people just like meditation because it makes them feel peaceful. That's good. But some people during meditation, they connect with some higher reality and they long love that connection. So there is a progressively higher stage over there. And then there are further stages. There's bhava. Bhava is one start experiencing spiritual emotion. Hmm? So we all experience various emotions. We most of the emotions are related with the world. If our favorite team wins a match, we feel very happy. If we get something which we wanted a new phone, we wanted a new clothes, we wanted something, we get it, we feel some emotions. The spiritual path is not meant to be bereft of emotions, but it is their emotions, but there are, so we could say spiritual emotions means we could say emotions related with divinity. So bhava. And then there is the highest divine emotion, that is love. Now this is not an exclusive emotion. Love includes a wide variety of emotions. So on the spiritual path, the idea is that at the highest level, the soul becomes completely linked, absorbed in the whole with love. So there is a union of love. The two become bonded in love, and that is considered to be the highest level of spiritual growth. So now, within these parameters, one important point to understand is that these parameters are not, they are not compartmentalized, but they are like staircase, like steps on a staircase. What do I mean by this? Steps on a staircase, that if I go back to this, it is not that uh, if I am, say, associating with spiritually minded people, it is not that when I start adopting spiritual practices, I give up the association of spiritually minded people. I still associate with them. So it's like if I go on the third step, I'm already there on the second step. It's not that I have given up the second step or the second step is no longer there, but the second step becomes more implicit. So Shraddha, that favorable curiosity is always there. So that's why I said it's like a staircase, it's going up. It's not like if you want to go on a bridge, if you are, say, if you want to go across a river or a lake, then there are stepping stones. So one stone ends and we go to the next stone, and then we go to the next stone. So these are not like stepping stones across a river. They are more like steps on up a mountain. They're steps up from where we are. So in that sense, then the previous steps include the subsequent steps include the previous steps. So when we develop nishtha, when we develop strong faith, then that inspires us to associate more. That increases our curiosity more. That gives us energy to do our spiritual practices with greater enthusiasm. So that's why we can say not compartmentalized like stepping stones on a bridge, but like steps on a staircase. So now where does staircase go from? So from material consciousness, you could say like that is the bottom of the stairs, and spiritual consciousness is the top of the stairs. So broadly speaking, this map is something which is very helpful for us to gain an overall framework of where I am and where I am going in my spiritual life. So with this map, we can get some tangible sense. Okay, this is what I did and this is how I have grown. And it is not that we keep doing, as I said, it's progressing. We keep moving up the steps. And in that way, we grow spiritually. So this is, as I said, we move from Shraddha, Sadhu Sangha, Bhajan Kriya, Anartha Nivritti. So from that, Nishtha, Ruchi, Asakti, Bhav and Prem. That's how we grow stage by stage on the spiritual path. So these are what I talked about as the 3 parameters. Now, the question comes up, as I mentioned, these 3 parameters, they are like overlapping. So for all of us, we need, whenever we are doing something, we need a sense of success, a sense, at least a sense of movement. Am I doing something worthwhile? Is it working for me? So if we are just doing something, just we keep doing it ritualistically because I have to do it, and I see no change in my heart, I see no transformation, then I will wonder, why should I do it? So when we are assessing our own spiritual growth, how are we assessing it? So if we don't consider some parameters, and we don't consider parameters based on some sound reasoning, then what happens is, if we don't have parameters, then we become driven largely by our emotions. So let me put this over here. So if we don't use parameters, then what happens is, our flickering emotions become our default parameters. That means if something feels good, I will do it. If not, forget it. And that is not healthy. Today I feel like doing this, so I'll do it. Tomorrow, yesterday I didn't feel like doing it, forget it. If we do like that, then in no area of life can we grow tangibly. Now, for example, if I take medicine only when I feel like doing so, that won't work. What the problem is, that actually the medicine has to be taken regularly. So that's why understanding the parameters and assessing ourselves based on our parameters, not on our flickering emotions, that is important. Now we may say, but if we are on the spiritual path, isn't the spiritual path meant to make me feel good? Isn't it meant to make me feel better? Yes, definitely. However, we need to understand that there are different kinds of feeling good. So what do I mean by this? Say that, shouldn't spirituality make me feel good? Otherwise, why should I practice? If it's going to make me feel bad, why should I practice it also? You may say, that's true, yes, but feel good can be of different kinds. Say example, if so intoxication somebody does, it feels good, but for how long? It is, in one sense, this is feel good is the pathway to feel bad, because after a few hours I'll end up with a hangover, I will end up feeling miserable, and I will end up with spoiled health also. I will have ended up wasting money. So yes, feel good is there, but there are different kinds of feel good. So on the other hand, if somebody does a healthy workout, that also feels good, but it's a different kind of feeling good. I may not feel good immediately while doing the workout. Maybe I just skip it today. But if it's important for me to be healthy, I had to do that, then that doesn't come immediately, but over a period of time, as we become habituated to it, and we see I am fitter, I am healthier, my energy levels are more, and we start feeling better. So feel good is more gradual. We could say almost, when people start a workout, maybe in the first day you do some workout, you feel the muscles are paining, you feel, why did I even start this? We don't feel particularly comfortable. So the word feel good has slightly negative connotations. You could say the good feeling is more gradual. So same with, we could say, spiritual growth. So our feelings are fickle and not always reliable. So we can't discount our feelings entirely, but we can't rely on our feelings alone. So because with respect to workout, some days we feel great while doing a workout. Say, I want to do it. Other days we feel, why did I ever think of doing it? Forget it. So now if I consider, let's consider a medical treatment. If I take, now when we take medical treatment, if somebody has had a chronic disease, then there will be, if they are in pain, it's not that immediately the pain will go away, immediately discomfort will go away. But if say if they had taking a medical treatment for chronic disease, then what will happen is, rather than uh, as they recover, their overall health will improve. Recovery will lead to overall health improvement, even if they have some bad days. So if somebody had cancer and they're recovering from cancer, they have to take some very intrusive treatment like chemotherapy or something like that, and then they recover. But if you interacted with people who have this kind of long recovery journey, sometimes they have bad days. Now when they have bad days, does that mean the treatment is not working? Not necessarily. So their overall health chart is moving upward, but sometimes they may have a dip. So that's why what is required is, when we talk about should spirituality make me feel good, we need to look more at our overall happiness level rather than our specific feelings of happiness at particular moments. So I can say that after I started this spiritual path, overall I feel better about myself. Overall I am calm, I'm better able to deal with life situations, and I feel overall contented. Although even there, I'll also have bad days. Sometimes bad things happen, sometimes our mind goes through bad moods. So we need to look at more our happiness level than the specific feelings of happiness. So that way we will see that we are growing. If we rely only on our feelings, the feelings are fickle, they are unreliable. So today they may point me in the right direction, tomorrow they may point me in the completely opposite direction. uh, Today I may feel like I want to do this more and more and more. As devotees, we use our meditation beads, we chant the Hare Krishna mantra. So sometimes when we are chanting and we feel so good, I want to chant more, I wish I had nothing else to do, I could just absorb myself in meditation. And sometimes we are chanting, what happens is, we feel there are 108 beads in one mantra, when one set. Sometimes we take out the beads, is this 108 or 1008 over here? This is not ending at all. So what happened? So what happens is, it just doesn't work at times. So what doesn't work is, it's not that the process is not working, but our emotions don't necessarily indicate the working of the process or the not working of the process. So we need to look at our overall level of consciousness, our overall level of happiness. So yes, in the long run, we will improve. We will be on our consciousness level, our happiness level, our good feelings will be on an upward trajectory. But we may still have bad days. And that's why if we rely only on our feelings, then suppose somebody has a very bad day while they're taking a treatment, it's a demanding treatment, but it's working. And based on one bad day, they decide, I just give it up. I won't do this. Why should I do it? Well, they may lose the opportunity of a lifetime. They might be just near recovery, but they just quit because of that bad day. So when we have parameters when we have a trajectory, when we have a map, then we won't rely only on our emotions. And that's why having an understanding of the parameters that we are using. So sometimes the traditional parameters will be very helpful for us. Sometimes our personal parameters are important for us. Yes, last time when that person insulted me, I just exploded at them. But this time, since I've been doing this bhakti yoga, I felt angry, but I restrained myself. And then when I talked reasonably, that person also realized their mistake, they apologized. The whole thing got resolved. So I have developed a little more resilience. I've become a little more tolerant. Hey, that's good. So that might be something which is meaningful for us. So, so we need to know which parameters to use and how to use those parameters. So the idea is there are traditional parameters, there are personal parameters, there are social parameters. Now, all of them have their utility in different situations. So if we are in spiritual circles, and in spiritual circles, there are some times and tested ways of growing spiritually. And if we are doing those more, naturally that will be approved. That will be something which will be encouraged and appreciated for that. And that's good. That can inspire us to do it more. So overall, on the spiritual path, what the Bhagavad Gita says is that pratyaksha vagamam dharmim, that this is something which we can grow practically. We can grow tangibly on the spiritual path. We can experience directly. Pratyaksha vagamam dharmim. That what we practice is pratyaksha, there is practical experience of the transformation that comes about. But to have that practical experience, we need to be aware of what to look for. So I'll conclude with this point about parameters, and we can have some questions, and then I'll go ahead after that if we have some more time. In philosophical circles, this is considered to be the paradox of knowledge. So what is the paradox of knowledge? That to gain knowledge of something, we need knowledge of that thing. Now, what do I mean by this? So, example, if I want to buy gold, I first need to know what gold is. If I have no knowledge of gold, then somebody might give me some gold coated copper and I might mistake it to be gold and I will be cheated. So, to know about spirituality, to gain spiritual knowledge, for example, I need to know about spirituality. What do I mean by this? If everybody around is completely materialistic, nobody ever talks about the soul, nobody else talks about God, nobody ever talks about something beyond daily life, then I won't even get the desire to know about it. I won't even have any inkling about it. So the idea over here is that knowledge grows in degrees. So I need some starting knowledge about spirituality. Maybe there is some spiritual stuff. So that is Shraddha level. So that's the journey from Shraddha to Nishtha. I need to have some interest, some curiosity, and then gradually by that conviction will come. So imagine a place where everybody is blind. If everybody is blind, nobody will realize that they are blind. Get this point, that if everybody is blind, nobody has any idea of that there is something called blindness which is troubling us. Everyone will stay blind because no one will know about blindness or anything beyond blindness. Or rather, we'll put it there. So what happens is, nobody will know anything about anything beyond blindness. This is the way to live. Everybody uses a stick to negotiate their way. Everybody touches and everybody hears, and that's how they navigate in their life. So if somebody with eyes comes up, they'll say, "What's this? Everybody here is blind. What's happened?" Then they'll try to look for some cure. So the idea is that we need to have some knowledge to gain greater knowledge. So similarly, to assess our spiritual advancement, to assess our spiritual growth, So to see signs of our spiritual growth, we need to know, okay, let me put this way first. We need to know what signs to look for. If we don't know that, then we will either be just struggling in the dark, or we will mistake some signs. So some people feel, how do I know I'm spiritual? Oh, when I close my eyes, I see some kind of white light, and that's the sign I'm spiritual. Or some people may say, during my dream, some mystical images come up, or I get some paranormal sights. Okay, those may also be associated with spirituality, but those are not the primary signs of transformation. If we consider spiritual growth as a process of self transformation, of self realization, then we need to have reliable parameters. And thus we see parameters as resources for knowing what to look for. So if I am embarking on a spiritual journey, what should I be looking for? That I learn by looking at the various spiritual parameters. And in that way, the more we look for these, the more we are able to find if they are there. And if they are not there, then we will understand that maybe this path doesn't work. Maybe this path is not for me. Let me explore something else. If it's working, then even if sometimes we don't feel good while doing it, it's working. I was here, I moved till here. Let me keep persisting. I will move ahead. And therefore, let me keep doing this. So in this way, Krishna consciousness or Bhakti Yoga, it's not about believing something or someone. It's about gaining resources for experiencing life in a new way. So, okay, there is a whole inner dimension to my world, and I can understand it better. Okay, if I understand the concept of the soul, if I understand how the sound of mantras works in transforming me, then I can become transformed. And this way, it's about experiencing life in a new way and learning new lessons from life, or learning wisdom from our daily life. We learn and we grow. So Bhakti Yoga in that sense is eminently practical. It's practical, it's transformational, it's empowering. So we resolve the paradox of knowledge to see by learning to look for the right symptoms, for like signs, like parameters. And Bhakti Yoga, once you start looking for those parameters, we'll see the transformation happening. There are some people who think of equate spirituality with levitating. Now, when I sit and meditate, I rise above the ground and I feel so good about it. That's good if you can do that. But how much of a difference in the quality of our life is going to make? Okay, it's some kind of magic, I levitate. So life's ultimate magic is in our heart. In our heart means that when we become better, when the weaknesses that hold us back, they become overcome. When our strengths and our virtues become manifest, that is the ultimate magic. That is the magic that can happen when we take spiritual parameters as our guides and move forward. So, we all have come so far in our lives. We have achieved certain things, and we all, if we consider our own situation, we have often sabotaged ourselves. We could have achieved some things, but despite that, we sometimes work against ourselves. So we could say that we all have come so far in life despite often working against ourselves, despite sabotaging ourselves sometimes. So sometimes we make choices which hurt us. Sometimes we give in to our irrational passions. So if we became whole and started working with ourselves, that means we started working with ourselves means that we became integrated. There was less inner conflict within us. Our energies became channeled and united. We can sc- scarcely imagine how far we can go and what all we can do. So there is a lot of potential within all of us. All that potential remains latent. And if this inner magic, if this inner transformation happens, then we can go much further in life. In fact, discovering how far we can go can be our life's greatest adventure. Some people, for getting an adventure, they seek that I will go skiing in the ocean, I'll go climb on top of mountain, I'll do bungee jumping. And yes, all that is its own place. There are some adventure sports that can be engaged in. But the biggest adventure is that what all we can do if we learn to purify ourselves, if we learn to harmonize the forces within us, if we maximize our strengths and manage our weaknesses, what all we can do, that can be our life's greatest adventure. And Bhakti Yoga invites all of us to embark on that ultimate adventure. So I'll summarize what I spoke today. So I spoke about three parts broadly: about spiritual parameters for spiritual advancement. Can there be parameters? Somebody may say no, because spiritual things are matters of the heart which cannot be measured. Yes, they cannot be mathematically measured, but they can be still assessed. And the assessment happens when we learn to when we look at to know what to look for. Like we can understand the difference between a short tempered person and a calm person, even if we can't quantify anger. So then what to look for? I talked about three kinds of parameters. We may have our personal parameters. Um, that we may want to develop certain virtues or give up certain weaknesses. And that's what may motivate us on our spiritual journey. Conversely, we all may have our own particular social circles where there are certain parameters considered important. And then I talked about the traditional parameters, the journey from faith as positive curiosity to love as complete emotional absorption in the divine. And in that journey, the first 5 stages are like therapy, like a spiritual therapy. Hey, maybe there is a healthy state, maybe there's a doctor who works. So with that positive curiosity, we go and meet the doctor. That's sadhu sangha. Once we go there, we gain some further experience, and then we start practicing the prescriptions, and the prescriptions heal us. Then we feel, hey, this is wonderful, I want to try this more. And then we try it more, and that's how we slowly but surely start growing. And when we thus grow, then this thing works for me. That gives us great faith, that takes us forward. Then after that, as things move forward, we realize that there is more to life. Then there is a cessation of the negative. There's ruchi, asakti, bhav, and prem, where we not only disconnect ourselves from the unhealthy worldly realities, but we connect with the all attractive ultimate reality. And then lastly, I talked about how to grow on the spiritual path. If we don't use parameters, then we don't consciously choose parameters wisely, then we will default to using our own feelings as parameters. And our feelings can be very fickle. Spirituality is will make us feel good, but that may not happen immediately. Just like some treatments which may be very healthy, which may be very good for our health, but we may have bad days even when taking a good treatment. That's why we need to focus on the parameters, and if we use those parameters, then we will know what to look for. when we are growing. So paradox of knowledge is we need to know what we are looking for to some extent. So guided by parameters, guided by such parameters for our growth, we all can experience the magic of inner transformation. And by this is the ultimate magic, because this can empower us to become all that we are capable of, all that we are meant to be. And how far we can go in our life in terms of inner transformation, in terms of outer contributions, discovering that can be our life's greatest adventure. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Are there any reflections or questions anyone would like to share?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you so much for that. That was an amazing explanation of the stages of bhakti, and I think we all took a lot from that. We can use that in our daily life. So thank you so much for that detailed explanation. There are, I see, 2 comments or questions in the chat box. So let me read the first one from Bafana. Hare Krishna, Prabhu, thank you for the stages one can map their movement or development or progress in spiritual growth. The stage, Anarta Nivritti, challenging one. For example, lust either for women or men, yet one wants to practice. I learned that it can be mapped out and that it's made up of 70 of the Anartas. How do you counsel we intensify spiritual engagement, such that we can overcome the obstacles due to the Anartas? And can it take many births to get to prema? Can it happen in this lifetime? And can assessment take one being a long-standing in ISKCON that they can get to prema stage? So can we achieve prema in this lifetime?
Okay, that's quite a few questions in one question.
Talk about the first of the intensifying spiritual engagement and overcoming anartas first.
So when Anartha Nivritti is a long stage, no doubt about it. And one of the key things that we need to do in our spiritual journey is not fixate too much on the negatives while we are assessing our spiritual advancement. Yes, we may have, some people may have anger issues, some people may have greed issues, some people may have lust issues, whatever it is. That, yes, these will go down gradually as we practice bhakti. But if we focus on the negative, then what happens is we end up remembering that more than we are remembering Krishna. Oh, why is this not going away? Why is this not going away? Why is this not going away? Why is this still coming back? So all of us are at different places in our spiritual journey. Some of us may have more conditionings than others. And one person might be able to give up a particular conditioning very easily. Somebody may give up lust very easily, relatively easily, but maybe that person is proud of how free they are from sensual cravings. And giving up that pride may be much more difficult for them. So what happens is that if we focus on the negatives, it can lead to discouragement, it can lead to distraction. Discouragement because we see that negatives are not going away. Distraction because we are not focusing on Krishna, and the essence of bhakti is to focus on Krishna. So it's much healthier to focus on the parameter, that am I growing in my attraction toward Krishna? Am I connected with and committed to practicing bhakti? If I am doing that, that itself is a significant step forward. So I'd like to share a diagram, or this is a whole, actually right now I'm doing a series of talks on how to fail well. How to fail well. Now, nobody wants to fail in one sense, but we all face failures in life. So I'm just sharing this over here, that this is our conventional understanding, that if I'm following the rules, if I'm following the standards, then I am Krishna conscious. And if I'm not able to follow the rules, if I'm not able to follow the standards, then I'm not Krishna conscious. However, the reality is different. The reality is that Krishna consciousness is a matter of consciousness. I can be following rules and I can be Krishna conscious, and I may not be following rules and I may still be Krishna conscious. How is that possible? Because Krishna consciousness is a matter of consciousness. So, because of somebody's conditionings, because of somebody's past, following certain rules may be extremely difficult for them. But even if they are not following rules, still they may be Krishna conscious. In fact, the Mahabharata has a whole section called the Vyadha Gita. Like we have Bhagavad Gita, that is a song of God. So there's a Vyadha Gita. Vyadha Gita is the song of the butcher. So this butcher is depicted as a big philosopher. And a sage, a sannyasi, goes to this butcher to learn spiritual wisdom. We say, how can a butcher be a philosopher if that person is engaged in that kind of activity? Well, circumstantially, professionally, a person may be entrapped in a particular area. But that doesn't mean that they can't have spiritual insight. So that person has such spiritual insight that even a sage goes and asks questions. Now, this doesn't mean that every butcher is a philosophically wise person. But the point is that don't reduce spiritual growth or spiritual stature to just certain external parameters. So the idea over here is that somebody may not be following rules, but still, if their inability to follow rules makes them more humble, makes them cry out for Krishna more, makes them intensify their bhakti practices, then they can still be Krishna conscious. That's why we shouldn't fixate too much on the negatives in our spiritual journey. So Krishna consciousness is not just about meeting standards. It's about staying connected with Krishna. And that's why Krishna consciousness includes failure, if that failure is accepted with remembrance of Krishna. I may decide to follow a particular standard, but I fail. But I remember Krishna. And this is depicted in the Bhagavatam. We can say in the Bhagavatam, the story of Lord Shiva, and he is captivated on seeing the beauty of Mohini Murti. Mohini Murti is a manifestation of Krishna who comes, and she looks so attractive. She's so diverse, so could say devastatingly beautiful, that even Shiva, who is a very venerable personality, Shiva is captivated by Mohini Murti. So he's captivated by her. But after that whole incident happens, Shiva doesn't feel, oh, I was humiliated in front of my followers. Shiva says, Krishna, you are so attractive that you can delude even me. So he doesn't focus on his own humiliation. He focuses on Krishna's power, Krishna's glory. And thus, he is Krishna conscious even when failing in a moral standard. So he is with his wife, and he leaves his wife and runs after some other woman. Now, again, I said these are exceptions, but the exceptions do illustrate a principle. That is, Krishna consciousness is not just about meeting standards. Krishna consciousness is about staying connected with Krishna. So to illustrate this further, you could say that a seeker is here. We may fall in Krishna consciousness, or we may fall out of Krishna consciousness. That means I am following certain rules, I stop following those rules, or I am unable to follow those rules, but I still decide to practice bhakti. I still stay connected with Krishna. I still try to remember Krishna. So certain standards of self-discipline, certain standards of, say, controlling lust, anger, greed, whatever it may be, I may not be able to follow that, but I don't give up the practice of bhakti. So if I give up the practice of bhakti, that is when I fall out of Krishna consciousness. Just inability to follow rules doesn't mean that I'm falling out of Krishna consciousness. So even if we can fall in Krishna consciousness. Now, just to make it a little lighter and a little more provocative, now some people can rise. So here, there's a following rule, not following rules. There's a seeker. The seeker can rise in Krishna consciousness. That means they're not following rules and they start following rules. But actually, somebody can rise out of Krishna consciousness. how do you rise out of Krishna consciousness? That means somebody starts following certain rules, but if they become proud and they start looking down at everyone else, see, I am so strict, and all these are fallen, attached, hopeless people, then their pride, their arrogance may actually indicate that they're no longer Krishna conscious. So they're rising, but their very rise makes them, when they were at a lower level, they were humble. Yeah, I'm not able to follow these rules. I'm struggling. I need Krishna. But they rise up and they think, I become pure now. I become so powerful. And they stop thinking about Krishna. They stop calling out to Krishna. So they may rise out of Krishna consciousness. So Krishna consciousness is very subtle. And that's why the point I made is don't fixate over whether I am able to overcome certain negatives or not. They may take time. And even if they take time, just continue practicing bhakti. So if we find out something firm that we can connect with in Krishna consciousness, that itself will give us the strength. And that strength will help us grow. So this is first. So the first point I wanted to make is don't become discouraged if you are not able to follow certain standards. And the second point I'll make with concluding this is that, that how to fail well if at all we are going to fail. The essence of devotion is not about ability to follow rules. It's about our heart's intention to reach Krishna. And then find an anchor to face the waves of sensual desires. That means that if we are in the ocean and waves come, now when the waves come, no matter how strong we are, we may say, I don't want to get swept away. But if a strong wave comes, we will get swept away. And some people may be in a part of an ocean where strong waves don't come, and that's why they are very steady. We are in a part of an ocean where there are very strong waves coming, and we get swept away by that. So what do? We can't just, no matter how much willpower we exercise, we can't fight against waves if they're big. But what we can do is, we can hold on to an anchor. When the wave comes, the wave may shake me, the wave may push me also. But if I can hold on to the anchor, then the wave won't completely toss me far away. So we focus on finding an anchor in Krishna consciousness. What is an anchor? An anchor is something which we like to do in Krishna consciousness. So what we may not, we may like to hear kirtans, sing kirtans, we may like to hear classes, we may like to maybe do a particular kind of service. So find what we like to do and make sure that we hold on to it determinedly. With that firm hold, we will be able to move ahead. And that will be our anchor in life. So find an anchor to face the waves of sensual desires. That's how we can move ahead. So first hold on and then move ahead. Okay.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. That was a wonderful answer and very encouraging, because I think we all, it's hard to follow so many rules. So, giving that encouragement and just knowing that it's our intention that matters is very important. So thank you. Bafana says, wow, I'm satisfied with that answer.
Thank you. Happy to be of service. So there's a question about this, how to fail well. Well, it's not on YouTube. I'm doing it through the Govardhan Eco Village website. So I will forward information about that how to fail well series to Sabyasachi Prabhu, and then he can forward it to you. I saw that comment.
Oh, awesome. Perfect. Thank you so much, Prabhu. Yes, that would be wonderful. And yes, unfortunately, that's all our time left for the session. So thank you again so much, Prabhu, for this wonderful, wonderful class. It was really, really helpful and so inspiring. Yeah, I was getting a bit emotional listening to that, so it really hit home. So thank you. And
yeah.
Thank you, Prabhu. So we just want to go through some announcements. So thank you everyone for listening to the class. I hope you found it just as inspiring. So Chaitanya Charan Prabhu can be found online at www.gitadaily.com, as well as thespiritualscientist.com. Where he can be contacted. You can subscribe to his YouTube channel at the Monks Podcast. And then after that, please kindly visit and share the WuSA social media platforms such as Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at WuSA 108, and help to get 1,000 follows and subscriptions. And thank you for your support. Thank you. The Books Are the Basis book club is up and running. So catch us every Thursday evening for jam-packed reading and sharing of our realization session via Zoom. So reading, we need to read, we need to learn. So please join some of these Zoom sessions every Thursday. And then as well, on Fridays, we have the Heart to Heart Vaishnavi Circle from 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. South African time, with her Grace Mother Vraj Leela via Zoom. So you can also find this on www.wusa.online and on the weekly WhatsApp groups.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Krishna